pronounced your name wrong, apologies. So I'll just throw that out as well, because I was giving out little awards the other day and I pronounced names wrong, but there we are. Okay, well, let's kick off then. And this is the first name I'm going to pronounce wrong, which is Malgorzata. Malgorzata.
Yeah,
You good?
hiya. Yeah, that's me.
That's you. Okay.
Okay, I'll just quickly share my screen. Hi, guys.
I gosh, yeah, not how you. Oh, that's yeah.
Okay. Can you see everything okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so I am a student from undergrad from Queen's University Belfast, and this is my project from my last semester, Sandy Grow. So this project explores the idea of temporary greenhouses as a taster of organic and self-sustainable future neighbourhoods in the heart of Belfast. And the site, once a space for bonfire celebrations, becomes an embodiment of community cohesion in the form of tropical greenhouses. And the excavated, contaminated ground will leave room for new rammed earth topography, which then provides sort of spaces for allotment, and it also creates a facade, house with fresh grown produce shops. So the average waiting time for community gardens and allotments in Belfast is roughly between 1 and 2 years. And research into the history of Hillsborough Castle pineapple farms, it revealed that the possibility of growing tropical plants is actually possible in the oceanic climate. So the interpretation of the 18th century tropical greenhouses, in my opinion, then could become the temporary solution to local agricultural needs, while also simultaneously retaining the Sandy Rose ownership of the site. And the proposed market-like facade of Wellwood Street invites then pedestrians to pass through the scheme towards the city centre and also the new transport hub. In the next 10 years, the housing executive is looking to house around 66,000 people in Belfast. And so they're looking to propose the terraced housing neighbourhood on the site. And this is the temporary solution until the 10 years. And by then, I sort of hope that a series of greenhouses and local vegetable allotments would remain on the site and serve their purpose within the terraced urbanization. So the annual 11 night bonfires have contaminated the soil, and due to large deposit of toxic ashes seeping through the ground over the years, the soil must be removed for obviously healthy plant growth. And the excavation process then could continue to create space for new rammed earth topography below ground level. So polycarbonate roof are oriented to maximize solar gains, which are stored in the thermal mass of the rammed earth and would then reduce the long-term heating costs of the greenhouses. Obviously, my scheme is placed approximately 2 meters below the ground level, as opposed to most temporary structures, which are attached onto the ground surface. So a range of columns create and sort of a temporary timber frame, which create perfect growing conditions for tropical plants, shaping a fragrant and uplifting community room. So that's that.
You're on mute there, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to just move quickly on then. It's Matthew. Matthew Liu.
Yep. I'll just quickly share my screen then. Sorry. Can see it okay?
Yet?
Is it recording? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it now, Matthew.
Yeah. So my project is about proposing a student union in Ireland, and especially in Belfast. And in this project, I'm refurbishing the Telegraph building, which was a place to publish newspapers every day, even in the times of war. And what I think would be good is that to make a student union there, that makes ideas and spread among the country that is led by the students. And thinking of that, I was trying to make reference back to the history, where the agora and the stoa are the public squares to produce ideas by the citizens of Roman or Greek, and in terms of making that, it would be good to block the signals so that the students can rely on their own ideas. And talking of spreading ideas, the signal towers in Craig is always a big interest of mine, and I always feel like and I went into studying the signal towers, and I found that the higher you go, the more audiences you got, and the antennas and plates have different amount of audiences. Sorry. Oh, and
Keep going.
yeah, so these my scheme is to reduce all the floor plates and then expose all the structures and slot in the stoa boxes, which serves as like the positive spaces, and the negative spaces would be the agora space, which is a vertical public square. So these are the sketches, and moving on to the side. The road on the left is the Royal Avenue, and the road on the right is Donegal Street, which is next to St. Anne's Cathedral, in the center of Belfast. These are the plans, and the tower is made of timber, and it is bounded next to the existing structures. And the room that will block the signal will be the discussion rooms on the ground floor, which is made of rammed earth, because when rammed earth has a certain amount of thickness, it has a certain enough density to block the signals, and it will be also environmentally friendly as well. And this is the this timber tower, yeah, sections, elevations, and the exploded axonometric is shown, is highlighting the existing structures as green and the new structures as red. And here is the timber structures that are highlighted in red. So yeah, these are the kind of models and renders of the agora spaces and the stoa spaces. This is the first floor agora spaces, which will be the most crowded, and this is the 7th floor broadcasting area. Yeah, thank you very much. That's me.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Both that and the previous presentations, the power of computers and the power of those graphics is amazing. So again, moving on quickly, we have Sarah next.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Sarah.
Just
If you could try sharing your screen.
there
we are. It's up there. It's working.
Perfect. It's great. So yes, I'm Sarah, and I'm thrilled to be presenting the Sandbank Refractory project with you all today. And the main goal of the Sandbank Refractory project was to work with the possibility of having adaptation without demolition. So the composition of the building was really about accepting change. And no matter the trade or action inside, the building would host this seamlessly. So at the start of the project, it's a glass blowing learning facility. However, over time, perhaps in 2072, this can change into a tattoo parlor without any further action. So looking at the location of the project, it's centered in the Cathedral Quarter, quite a vibrant area in Belfast, and it infills an infill site, so it fills the gap, so to say, culturally and spatially. So looking at the frontage of the site, we can see that the project is separated into 3 areas, and these proportions kind of are a signal towards the melodies of the streetscape and the heritage that surrounds the whole building. And now this separation really continues on into the plan, where we can see on the left we have a more permanent structure that's made out of recycled plastic aggregate, and then the more flexible areas on the right where we have a steel structure that's very lightweight. So in the middle between those two, we have what I would call the centerpiece of the project, which is a chimney that is both the circulation area for air, for the glass blowing facility, but also for the people with the staircase lift and entry point. So looking at the street and the streetscape and public realm of this project, you can see it's quite a welcoming environment and really creating that feeling that Belfast has already. And the overhang creates a shelter from, I would say, quite the unpredictable weather of this climate. And in section, we really see the differences in densities, both structurally, for example, with the thick brick, red brick chimney, both with the spaces that relate to the Georgian housing in the area, with the differences in floor levels. Now, this encourages a certain kind of creativity and complexity of the space, where the visitors are encouraged to discover these kind of moments of either airiness and open plan, but also like explore the more traditional confined spaces of this project. So the centerpiece, the chimney, currently would be used for the glassblowing learning facility for obvious reasons, but because of the rising temperatures when summer really hits Belfast into a summer, well, maybe holiday destination, this could really act helpful for the heating and ventilation strategy of the future. So with all these elements and forms and fabrics combined in tandem, this really can allow the building to be a permanent asset to the city, but also explores a variety of flexibilities and adaptation to the ever-growing craft and talent, and also conversation of the Belfast community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. I hope someday the planners will allow something like that to be passed in the street, but there we are. Thank you. Our next speaker is Connor Quinn.
Hello.
Hi, Connor.
Just give me 1 wee second. I'll just share my screen.
Your video's off, Connor?
1 wee second. I just thought there was somebody else in front of me, but
Yeah, that's right.
I
Thomas
was
Crowe
expecting
was
to be
to
set.
go in front of you, and
I'm not
he's
quite ready.
not available.
Just give me 1 second.
There we are. We see you now.
Yeah, now get the screen.
Just the wee share button.
See that now?
That's it. It's working great. Okay,
Perfect.
off you go.
So my name is Connor Quinn, and I'm an undergraduate student from Ulster University. So my project was a women's tech on the Antrim Road in North Belfast. So this project seeks to contribute to the education of women in STEM as an extension to the existing women's tech located in North Belfast. Inspired by the philosophy of women's tech and a growing knowledge of feminist architecture, this project aspired to create spaces that support vulnerable women, refugees, and those seeking employment in STEM, a traditionally male-dominated industry. Empowering people with technical and creative skill in a light-filled and inspired environment which promotes social interaction, connects to its context, embraces the street threshold, while remaining its sensitivity to vulnerable users is the thesis of this project. The existing site is a disused filling station with a large forecourt on a corner site. So, visual connections. The key to this design was connecting spaces with a community cafe on ground level to the street front, but a private internal courtyard for the women and their children only, along the east boundary of the site. The entrance foyer doubles as an exhibition space for the women to exhibit their woodwork creations from the courses they'd attend here. The pivot doors to the wood workshop allow the space to bleed out into the foyer. This section aims to identify how each space within the women's tech relates to one another and how the women can feel safe in this environment with an abundance of outdoor space that is private from the street. The colonnade allows for the women to feel part of the community of North Belfast but still be a safe distance from street level. The greenhouse on the right has a mezzanine therapy room above, which allows the women to talk about any ordeal they may be facing and sit in a zen-like space with the smells of the greenhouse creating a calming atmosphere for these women. And as you can see just here with where my cursor is, there is a playground for the children on a raised level, again to allow the women who are coming here to feel safe and that their children are safe away from the public access. So the colonnade was one of the key designs aspects of my design. So the kind of, in terms of sustainability, it was used as a shading mechanism, but it was also a structure that I wanted to allow the women to get around the building externally without feeling unsafe. So these pocket roof gardens at each end of the building allowed the women to explore the building externally without feeling under threat from an abusive partner that they may be trying to remain in hiding from. These roof gardens boast fantastic views of Belfast, with Cave Hill Mountain to the north, Alexandra Park to the east, the city centre to the south, and Black Mountain to the west. The internal courtyard is only accessible via the private entrance to ensure the women feel safe at ground level. So this is the key wood workshop internally, and the triple height space is basically designed so that all the spaces within the building are visually connected. So when the women are in here doing their workshops, the staff office is in that first glazed room above, and then the creche is above that. And it just gives the women this sense of enclosure and safety that although the street is to the front, they know that their children are safe and that the staff are always nearby and on hand. So with the greenhouse, this double height space allows the women to grow their own vegetables and plants that then will be sold on market stalls on the proposed new square at the south entrance. The mezzanine floor above, as I previously mentioned, acts as a therapy space where the women can look down and smell with the smells of the flowers, creating a calming atmosphere if they're experiencing a difficult ordeal. Urban interventions throughout Belfast. So removing the car park and replacing it with a parklet at the front of the neighbouring building would allow for a more vibrant, sustainable North Belfast. Dotting these pocket parks around Belfast is a positive step in making more public spaces pedestrianised, allowing for people to enjoy a coffee in a welcoming outdoor space. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. That was great. Again, I mean, this is my personal thing, but the graphics do sort of tell us a thousand words in pictures. So thank you.
Thanks
Okay,
very much.
so moving swiftly on. The next speaker is first name John Matthew.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. You're. It's up there now. If you want it, whenever you're ready, John.
Yeah. John Matthew Malapas on undergrad from Ulster University. So my project here, as you can see, is located in Belfast. It's the retrofit of the transport house in Victoria Street, corner side of the High Street. My project aims to open up this space that's enclosed in the building to become an entry point, a thoroughfare in the edge of the city. And as you can see in the sketch here, it's showing up the possibility of using that alleyway as a popular space, um, commonly seen in Belfast. And this is just a sketch. And an area particularly in the brief of our project was to reuse the existing internal uh, facades, internal materials of the building, and this is just giving a sense of the reuse of the building, and this is just another level. And my proposal for the building is to turn it into a digital museum. That is why I wanted to minimize the changes on the exterior and just focusing on the actual existing in the exterior, and just a bit about of the reflection of the relevance of the response. So digitization began in 1950s with the invention of the first computer. Ever since, it has been a non-stop evolution of converting physical objects to virtual information. This radically altered our lives, the way we communicate, work, shop, bank, relax, and entertain ourselves. Technology defines and distinguishes our modern lives. It is a virtual architecture, unseen platforms influencing our lives. Meanwhile, the Transport House, which is my response to the brief, Belfast was built in 1959. The building in use for 53 years and unoccupied from 2012 till today. This metaphorically reflects that of a digital device's life, used for a time and abandoned when a new and better alternative is available. Transport House remains like an artifact in the building scene. This observation fueled the exploration and reflective response towards listed buildings, before which I personally position was it is it better to demolish and the whole thing and build anew? But the more understanding leads to an enhanced appreciation of existence. It wasn't a simple switch, rather like a dimmer switch. Having increasing knowledge results to respect for its existing architectural style. Additionally, it was also a way of designing that is more sustainably inclined. And that's just a bit about my project. Thank you.
There we are, muted. Thank you, John. I really liked seeing presumably those first were freehand sketches you did. The first
Yeah.
were lovely to see those, and your exploded axonometric looks wonderful. So thank
Thank you.
you. That was the previous speakers were all well, sorry, they were queens, and we're now on to, they were all bronze medal nominations. We're now on to the silver medal nominations, and the first one of these is Zoe Gibson.
Hi, I'm just going to share my screen here.
John, can you on share or whatever you do? He's still there.
Can you see this okay?
Yep, we can. Yep, that's
Okay.
that's perfect now. Yeah.
So my name is Zoe and I am a master's student in Ulster University. The title of my thesis is Rathlin Island, a landscape repository. How do we archive the landscape? So Rathlin Island is a small yet fascinating archipelago sitting perched on the north coast of Ireland on the Straits of Moyle in close proximity to the Scottish Isles. And Rathlin is only 6 miles wide by 4 miles long and is anchored 6 miles from Ireland's shores of Ballycastle and Fairhead. The island carries mythological stories, historical inhabitants, tailor-made professions to suit island life, and a small permanent population of 150 residents. My thesis stemmed from my dissertation, which was titled The Art of Archiving, where I held interviews with 3 prestigious archives discussing the importance that archives and architectural records have to regenerate and inspire the work that we produce. These preserved artifacts kept within the archive fundamentally are invaluable to our professional culture and architectural society, as they allow us to answer questions we have of our past, of our present, and of our prospects for the future. This hand-drawn thesis pays homage to the art of cartography, discussing the need to archive landscapes, not only to create maps or to highlight territories, to understand historical growth or movement of people, but to document the flora and fauna, the shift in ecology and geological formations of the landscape. Also, stories that are stored in a community or in a person that collectively are shared to give an island its name. Discovering Rathlin has been a personal journey through drawing, creating illustrations of the island, reciting stories through different mediums, and thorough research into the cultural life and families that used to reside there. Experienced by me, a young architect and aspiring cartographer, the island is considered through 3 characters who become the archivists and allow the island to be considered through layers of time, curated through making, through drawing, and through performance. The island becomes its own archive, looking both forwards and backwards into time, through people, through events, and things that are made on the island, such as the buildings themselves. So located in South Rathlin, the 3 buildings, the maker, the cartographer, and the performer are embedded in the landscape like three timber boats. Each building celebrates a different aspect of island life and island craftsmanship. Drawings were produced at various stages of the thesis as means of communication to show activity and artifacts to be contained in the delicate structures. The buildings poetically converse with one another about the intimate landscape that they resided within. And these three timber structures echo the ways of the traditional boat builder. They'll continue to age with the archipelago whilst forever preserving the intimate archive and artifacts in their keep. The final thesis was displayed on a 10-metre cartographer's table, replicating the traditional architect's drawing board, and fundamentally telling a story of my personal discovery of Rathlin Island by hand. The daylight in our atriums and university illuminated the drawings on tracing paper, encouraging visitors to become immersed and a part of the island and the cartographer's room. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was great. That was great. Thank you. Our next speaker then is Matthew Graham.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, 1 second. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think it's great. Whenever you're ready, Matthew.
Yeah. So my thesis was looking at equalizing the heritage deficit. My proposal was based in the false ankle interface area. So I'll start with how my thesis was formed, which was through an elevational study of industrial chimneys that saw them become typically larger in scale as populations grew and urbanized. By superimposing the largest of industrial chimneys, the 420-meter tall Gres 2 chimney in Kyrgyzstan, inside the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Krespitiata, I sought to represent the need of contemporary society to develop and sustain itself, come into conflict with a productive townscape designed when populations and energy demands were smaller. This led to identifying the heritage deficit, that is the rate at which we are urbanizing is outpacing the rate at which we are preserving. And this brought into sharper focus the effects of the climate emergency and how the linear built environment and the huge amount of carbon dioxide produced in the construction industry can negatively affect our environment. So moving towards a proposal, I looked at research relating to the amount of heritage in different areas around the United Kingdom. This helped identify where was least and most rich in amounts of heritage. And this brought me to the location of Belfast, which as a city has significantly urbanized through the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. This growth, coupled with our lagging preservation policies, has resulted in heritage becoming increasingly rare and underrepresented. This research would help frame my proposal, which responded to the heritage deficit by recapturing latent and lost heritage within the falls ankle interface area. As indicated by this collage along Cooper Street, the Farset River that once defined the edge between the falls and the Sangle has been replaced by a 14-meter high concrete and metal barrier constructed during the Troubles. This river would have supplied a network of weaving and spinning mills that were destroyed during the Troubles and would have united the wider area through a shared economy and culture. However, these mills, alongside a Baptist church, were destroyed during the Troubles or left to be abandoned and decay due to overseas market pressures. The gaps they leave behind in the urban grain appear as broken teeth and have contributed to the lower standards of living brought about by deindustrialization. In response, my proposal contended for the reconstruction in the gaps they once stood, seeking to revitalize and reunite the greater area. The peace wall was punctured at several points to help reunify the two communities. New woodland would bring much needed recreational space, and the deculverted Farset River would redefine the edge. To help with the process of reconstructing this lost heritage network, the Temple of Craft was proposed, which would be a community building that would encourage the revitalization of traditional trades. It would make use of water extracted from the decultivated Farset River and would be constructed with vaulted ceilings, repurposed segments of the disassembled peace wall, and would help facilitate the reconstruction of the lost heritage network that sought in a small part to equalize the heritage deficit and create a unified and more stable peace in the Falls and Sankel interface area. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much. Okay, moving swiftly on. Next speaker is Alexander. Are you there, Alexander?
They are online, I can see, so
I mean, they're one of the 35 then.
Yep.
I wonder.
We'll move on maybe and try
Yeah,
again.
we'll come back. We'll come back to that one. Yeah, okay. So we move on then. Hopefully, Courtney is next. Courtney, if you're available.
Yes, just get my screen shared.
Okay, we can see it. You hit. Perfect. Off you go then.
No problem. So I'm Courtney McElkenny and I'm Masters for Ulster University. So throughout my years, I've been studying Belfast throughout my work, and I began to find an interest in the conflict-formed residential streets of the city. And I wanted to further my understanding of these divided streets to a much deeper level than a simple analysis of their architecture. What I wanted to do was uncover the genealogy of these areas and understand how over 50 years after the Good Friday Agreement, something within these residential streets lingers on, resulting in the neighbourhoods becoming stagnant within their development. So the chosen site for my thesis was Leganil, a village situated in the northwest periphery of Belfast and an area which so richly tells the story of Northern Ireland, from its cascading landscapes to its boom within the Industrial Revolution to its civil conflicts right through until the present day. And this genealogy is what has culminated in Leganil becoming what it is, an area which holds on to its past through both its landscape and its stories. So the goal of this thesis was to allow Leganil to continue in what I believed it had become, an archive, a neighbourhood which acted as an archive to the entire history that Northern Ireland has developed through. And this thesis will celebrate the area of Leganil by continuing to archive it both culturally and physically, and allowing its community and its landscape to continue telling its story. So the first interventions as part of my thesis on site consist of a series of watchtowers built to stand tall within the cascading landscape of Leganil, and each one acknowledging an important period of history which Leganil has archived within its landscape. Then the overall vision for this site completed with a final building being developed and situated in the centre of all four watchtowers. However, rather than protruding vertically from the site, this building will lie horizontally, cemented within the limestone rocks of Leganil village. So with the final buildings programme is divided along three main levels. In the top levels of the building will house the community's long requested youth hub, while below at ground level, space will be created to house a marketplace for the community to make amenities and facilities more accessible by bringing them back into the heart of the village. Then below all of this activity, buried on the same level as the rocks of Roth Hill, this building will house a subterranean archive, something, as we've discovered, that Leganil has naturally become throughout time. While the watchtowers serve to highlight and celebrate this archival landscape, this subterranean bunker will preserve the stories. But sunken deep within the ground, It will house the more unpleasant stories told throughout Leganale's history, an oral history of the Troubles. In order to create a building that truly lends itself to service for its community, all of the building's functional spaces are condensed within this central core, which spans 2/3 of the building's length, and as a result, the floor space then remains open and free for use. In order to give each programme its own identity, it has its own relationship with light on the horizontal plane and how it enters the building differently within each programme. The surrounding void space around each floor level then acts to still create a spatial connection between all three programmes, as after all, at the heart of this building is celebrating the community. Although the nature of the building's form and construction is heavy and monolithic, its organisation and manner is simple and sensitive. All are carefully considered to create a building which balances pride with empathy, engagement and reflection, and our past with our present. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you very much. Alex, have you turned up? Are you available? No. Okay. Well, we'll move on then. Our next speaker is Rory McGee.
Yep. Hello, just 2 wee seconds here to share my screen.
No problem.
So I'm Rory McGee. I'm a master's student at Ulster University, and the title for my thesis was how can building with timber be the driver for the transition of the built environment to net zero? So globally and in the UK, the built environment accounts for 40% of total annual greenhouse gas emissions. Currently, this is split 80% of which is associated with operational emissions, and the further 20% is attributed to embodied emissions. But as buildings become more energy efficient, this weighting will flip with the onus on embodied emissions. So throughout my thesis, I had focused on the role of timber as a carbon sink, and linking this with my dissertation, in which I compared a traditional steel and concrete structure with a CLT structure, finding a reduction of 40% in embodied emissions within the CLT structure. So this kind of formed the basis for my thesis. And then I started looking into sort of the forestry history of Ireland and how the forest had been eroded over thousands of years of farming and land use. And then kind of trying to think about how we could start to regain some of the lost forests. Maybe is it through implementing a mass timber manufacturing facility within the island as a way to stimulate the growth of trees, or and then started looking through the process of the manufacturing of the timber. And then I started getting into sort of the site. So I landed upon Claddagh Quarries in Newry after quite a long deliberation between 3 or 4 different sites. And I chose Newry because of its link between Dublin and Belfast, the 2 largest cities on the island, which can help reduce the emissions from transport of the material, and also the large area of existing forest in Rostrevor and the forest surrounding the site itself, as you can see in green. And then I began surveying the site and picking the actual location for where. So basically, it was to be a CLT mass timber manufacturing facility with a timber research centre linked to it. And I chose this platform here, where the timber manufacturing facility should go. So the conceptual form of the building aims to mimic the face of the quarry. The mass of the building sits within the footprint of the existing quarry platform to minimise the need for excavation of the site. Sorry. The building aims to match the quarry in height, with the tallest point providing access to the top of the quarry as the building slopes eastward, following the topography of the site. And then here's a little model showing the sort of master plan of the area, with your timber manufacturing facility off to here, with a sawmill, storage facilities, greenhouse for growing the trees, and then your manufacturing facility, which is open to the public. And the building was to be a ZEB integrated within a wider ZEN, so it was looking at various methods of energy retention and sharing energy between the buildings on the site. So such as in the sawmill, there's a kiln that's used to dry the wood, so that the excess heat from the kiln could be used to heat the research centre and other buildings around it. And then you can see to the right just some of the other ZEN strategies, or zero emission neighbourhood strategies, implemented within the scheme. And here's just a few of the plans. Sorry. And 1 second, lost. So the Timber Research Centre aims to provide a collaborative space between research and industry. Blurring the lines between research and industry will help develop material solutions for reducing emissions within the built environment, specifically timber products. The building itself is a showpiece for the possibilities of building tall with timber and the various uses for timber-based products. The centre is located within a decommissioned limestone quarry, previously used to extract materials for concrete, a material which accounts for 8% of total greenhouse gas emissions. The new application of the site aims to offset its historic emissions through the master plan of mass timber manufacturing facility connected to the Timber Research Centre. The centre further provides a space where research can connect with the wider public through public exhibitions. Footfall is redirected through the quarry via tower, providing direct access from the quarry base to the forest beyond, and walkways allow the public to walk through the manufacturing facility, seeing the processes from above. The Research Centre is a ZEB using renewables, passive strategies, and carbon negative materials to achieve this goal. The ZEB sits within a wider ZEN master plan that creates energy synergies between the various buildings associated with the manufacturing facilities. And that is kind of it. I just stop on this here and show basically the ZEB strategy implements a lot of passive technologies, mainly seen on the right, and then active technologies such as solar and borehole thermal energy storage and the likes. But that's that.
Okay. Thank you, Rory. Thanks for that. Next speaker is Darcy Carroll. Hopefully.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, we hear you.
Bear with me, I'll just share my screen here.
Yep, it's just
Is that
come
okay?
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good to go, Darcy.
So I'm Darcy and I was Masters at Queen's University. The thesis proposal was titled Spatial Negotiation Through Projection. The aim of the thesis research was to investigate the techniques of and relating to projection as a working method when designing and representing architectural ideas. So it was ignited by an analytical study of the work of surrealist artists, particularly Giorgio de Chirico, looking at his composition of form and geometry. The piece was projected into general arrangement to expose the potential of the imagined space that's portrayed within the image. Moving on, so this set up the working method for the thesis, working simultaneously in plan and perspective to create episodic moments from the viewpoint of the observer to evaluate the effectiveness of the space both three-dimensionally and schematically. This allowed for a continuous adaptations and evaluations to be made on a multitude of elements that could be critiqued within the one drawing. So we'll go back actually. It was applied to 2 contrasting sites. The first context was an intervention that within latent space, within the dense urban fabric of Belfast city centre, in which the observer is encouraged to engage with the space as an extension of the existing public realm. The theme of intrigue, geometric and atmospheric shifts and varying degrees of enclosure centered the design of the project when creating episodes that would unfold as the observer encountered them. And then the second was situated within the natural environment of a forested cemetery in Dusseldorf. Here, figure and ground were considered less traditionally and instead utilised hard and soft landscaping to define the gardens relating to the existing chapel within the cemetery. Again, the techniques of projection were continuously employed throughout to navigate the scenography of spaces. The occlusion which the forest context provides allowed me to consider the experience of the observer further than stationary limitations, investigating how human movement and ever-changing shifts in viewpoint can be represented through both design and depiction through this element of parallax and wandering through the forest and the obstruction of views and revealing of new views. This resulted in the project evolving as a composition of as a consequence of the imagined space before it, forming this composition of interconnected spaces with their own specific geometry that came from the existing and was springboarded from the specific context that the schemes were set within, and set upon this language of spatial negotiation for each scheme. And that's really it.
Okay, Darcy, thank you very much. And I feel like I'm a railway inspector, but it's final call for Alex Knowles.
Yes, hello.
Oh, good man. Good man.
Sorry about that. Share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, then, Alex.
So, my name's Alex Knowles. I'm a master's student from Queen's University. And my thesis is about palimpsest and how we can reappropriate heritage assets for the 21st century. So the kind of awkward beauty of old buildings has always intrigued me, whether it's a slow or natural decay or a violent and abrupt end. Their history they have kind of leaves a storybook-like charm, and in a era of highly polished buildings with reflective glass facades and soulless elevations, there's something kind of truly unique about being able to witness the patina of aged materials laid bare across the skin of a building. It could be argued that the kind of standard formulaic practice of ensuring any new intervention to a listed building must be easily identified is now outdated and offers kind of little long-term value to our shared heritage other than a creation of the paradox of kind of the pastiche. Architecture and art are kind of arguably the same. A solution could probably be found in the sphere of the brush rather than the brick. Palimpsest is a word kind of borrowed from painting and underlies the kind of general principle of my thesis. And by presenting the building as an architecture of change, using a reading of both the found fabric and a specific genius loci of the place, an architectural solution can be found. So situated in the National Trust estate of Mount Stewart, my project kind of seeks to question what it is we value with regards to our built heritage. And the proposal inverts the accepted conservation position by suggesting that the main house should instead actually be used as a vessel to help conserve the crumbling working farmyard. Traditionally, the house would not have been able to exist without the farm and its workings. So my project seeks to kind of reverse that and now use the other to kind of save the former. The process was kind of started through a careful documentation and analysis of the building, understanding its form, its layout, the patterns kind of laid bare across the floor, and how you move through the space. I decided to kind of work in the west hand section. Had a large double height space at the back, which is a chapel, and several other kind of smaller ancillary rooms. And the building in red there is the site. So as I mentioned at the start, the idea of spoiler is kind of the underpinning of the project. And spoiler is an architectural approach to heritage, and it dates back to Roman times, derived from the Latin meaning spoilum, which is spoils of war. Kind of put simply, it's the approach relies heavily on availability of materials and ease of supply, and it creates a collage-like approach to buildings. So in order to kind of gather spoiler for my intervention, I went around the site and documented carefully the existing structures that are there. And this gave me almost kind of an instruction manual of parts that were available on the site to create my new building. So that's what I did. In order to allow for the reconfiguration of the main house, certain elements had to be removed. The large central atrium space was utilised as the main circulation space. A small selection of rooms has been removed in order to allow for the installation of an equine spa and stables. The basement of the house has been flooded. An opening made in the roof to allow the creation of a natural pool. Ramped and stepped access is provided across the house for both the horse and the rider, much like it was in the stables. And first floor access has been provided by the installation of a stair horses. So these are a few of the plans. The section here. All the elements drawn in red is spoiler collected from across the site. And in order to kind of facilitate the conversion of the house to the stable, access had to be provided for the first floor. So double height space in the former chapel has been removed, and the insertion of a ramp staircase created from spoiler brick and tiles wraps around the interior space. Horse ramps such as these aren't common in the UK, however, across kind of mainland Europe, similar examples can be found. And sunk into the basement of the house is an equine pool, which provides both swimming and rehabilitation facilities to its horse residents. The pool can be accessed via both ramps and steps and is open to the elements above. Reclaimed tiles and trusses have been sought from the barns on the perimeter of the estate. The kind of overall approach is the scheme is that of an ongoing conversation between removal and retention. Now, removal doesn't necessarily mean removal to be destroyed, but kind of removal to find a new use, which is the underlying definition of spoiler. Mount Stuart's continued growth and evolution won't just end with the equine therm. Just as the need for the country house has come and gone, so will the need for my intervention. And the key to making the next successful move is the continuation of the building's palimpsest and the use of spoiled elements to create a new space for whatever future functions might be. Thanks.
Thank you, Alex. Wonderful images, I have to say. I remember your presentation from before. So that's all of the presentations now completed. Kieran is going to chair the next part, which is the Q&A. What I suggest, Kieran, is that when people are speaking, that they turn their cameras on. It'll be more exciting rather than sort of. I'll let you decide the rules on it. Okay, so over to you, Kieran.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Paul, and thanks to everybody for your presentations. It's great to get that overview of all the work that's going on, and I know it's only like it's only a small chunk of what's happened within the year group, but it's really fascinating and so much brilliant work, and I'm sure hours and hours and hours of effort goes into getting to that point. So it's much appreciated you sharing it with us today. So this is really an opportunity for everyone to ask questions, and I would like to open it to the floor. So if anybody would like, the first question is always the hardest. If anybody has a question for a particular person, please raise your hand and direct your question. If you have a question for the general group, equally, raise your hand, say who you are if you want to. You can even do it anonymously if you want, and put your question in there. I'll do the classic silence. It appears that your presentations have been so comprehensive, succinct.
All very shy. All very
Well, of
shy.
course. I know. Well, no, to be honest, most people who are tuning in are coming to see the presentations rather than ask questions. And last year it was exactly the same. When it came to questions, it was very quick. And also time-wise, it's probably coming towards lunch and people are getting hungry. So unless anybody... Oh, Sandra has a question. If that's not Sandra. That's Sandra.
Hi, it is Sandra. Yes. How
It
are
is
you,
Sandra.
Kieran? Good to see you.
Very good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go on ahead.
I'm not sure if my microphone is very good on this.
Oh, no, it's perfect. No, I can see you now.
So I just wanted to, it's not actually a question, I just wanted to acknowledge the fabulous presentations that we've seen today.
Yeah.
The bronze projects were extremely interesting, really. Sorry, I should say I'm the education director for the Royal Institute of Architects of Ireland. Some of you might come across me later in your career. But I just wanted to acknowledge the focus on retrofitting of existing buildings, the use of infill sites, the attention to sustainable design options, and the use of sustainable materials in the bronze presentations. They were fantastic, and congratulations to you all. And then on the silver medal, the research, the level of research was extremely interesting. The analysis and recognition of heritage, the visualization skills, and the use of sustainable materials and passive design, really extremely interesting. So delighted to be able to see your presentation today and wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.
Sandra, thanks very much for that.
I mean, I would like to sort of, on the back of that, say the same thing. The presentations and the work that's been done is amazing. When you're, it's 25 years since I was qualified as an architect.
I don't believe it, Paul.
Really, I do look that age. You lose touch. You lose touch with anything. What Sandra made a good point. Sustainability is coming into it. All the students are talking about whether it's reuse of an existing building to save carbon, the timber one where it was located, the whole sort of sustainability things become a big side of the presentations, and just the diversity of the designs and the diversity of the thinking is really very, very impressive. So I also thoroughly enjoyed just listening to the presentations for the second time. And good luck tonight. But we're not going to tell you who the winners are until you come tonight. You have to turn up. You know, there's no.
No, yeah, definitely the parties tonight, and I suppose that's really just to wrap up. I mean, perfect, lovely. What do you call it? What's that thing where you have a connection between two things? A segue. So here we are in. For those of you who weren't here at the start, I am in Riddle's Warehouse right now, where Architecture Night will be held this evening. An amazing historic building in the centre of Belfast, and whilst it's not in its full sense being put into use, this is a temporary use of it. It's it has a lovely connection in with some of the work that some of the studies that have been done, and I'm sure all of you will enjoy just being in the building. So we have Mark Simpson of BBC lined up to do the presentations, and Paul, the police, we're right beside the police station. Paul will be announcing the winners. I think it's the second part 2 of the night is Paul announcing the winners. And I look forward to seeing you all here later on this evening.
A little bird told me there was a free bar.
There is
Maybe that's not true.
That is true.
So, like, what more of an incentive do you need to come? I mean, that's it. That's all you need.
Yeah, well, we're turning people away. So unfortunately, the building does have a very strict capacity. So we can't. There are lots of people who would like to come who can't come, unfortunately. But there's 250 people coming in anyway. So it's a good big healthy crowd.
Okay.
So that's us, Paul.
Actually, of sustainability, it's in an old